do you think? Shall we start? Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Olivia Allison. Welcome to Nature Calls for the Nature Conservancy in Alabama. Today, we're going to talk to Chuck Byrd, who is our land steward. But before we start, I'm going to let you know that we're recording this call, and that while we're on the call, everyone's going to be muted so that will allow Chuck to give his presentation. And if you have questions, then just type them into the chat at the bottom of your screen. It's a little icon, and just type in there. And then at the end, we'll ask Chuck the questions. So Nature Calls is our attempt to get you out of the house virtually and into the field with our scientists like Chuck, and to find out about the conservation work that we do around the state. We're going to listen to Chuck's presentation for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have about 15 minutes of questions and answers. And we're going to continue this for the next week. On Thursday at 3 o'clock, we'll talk to Keith Tyson about fire. So right now, I'm pleased to introduce Chuck Byrd. Well, I don't know where he is in your life. There he is, who's been with the Nature Conservancy for 18 years. He's originally from Louisiana. He has a degree in forestry from Auburn, and we have the good fortune that he married an Alabamian. So he's our land steward. He's going to tell you what a land steward is and what he does to promote conservation all around the state. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Olivia. I've been with the Conservancy for about 18 years now, but my first job with the Nature Conservancy was as a 6-month seasonal intern in the Florida Keys with the Florida Keys chapter. And after about 4 years of being a 6-month intern, they actually gave me a real job. And kind of bounced around with the Conservancy, and then I ended up back in my home state of Alabama about 10 years ago. So the land steward position is sort of nebulous. It catches all stewardship, kind of whatever is needed. I'm just going to run through a quick presentation, and I'm going to shut off my video. I've heard this helps speed up the process. Now lagging. Let's see if that's giving it away. All right. The Nature Conservancy manages around 14 preserves all over the state. Those preserves can range from 2 to 3 acre house lot preserves for small species specific management, or large scale over 1,500 acre preserves for whole landscape scale. Depending on where your chat box is, we've got a map here of the state of Alabama. The preserves are broken up by sort of our north, central, and south. This map, the red, shows TNC ownership, and that could mean conservation easements, short-term holdings, but primarily this kind of gives you an idea of where our preserves are. Breaking it down by the north, we have Sharp Bingham, which is our largest preserve, and Coosa Bog, which is our smallest preserve. It's the house lot with the super rare plants. And that's them there, the Sarracenia orophilia. It's the green pitcher plant. It's found only in Alabama, except one spot in North Carolina and one spot in Georgia. And those are also both managed by TNC. So another one of our small species-specific reserves in St. Clair County. It's got the Alabama leatherflower. Again, about a dozen sites known in the world. This is a group of volunteers from the Birmingham Botanical Garden that help us remove vegetation around the plants to get them extra sunlight. In central Alabama, we've got the Kathy Freeland Bibb County Glades Preserve, which was named after our first state director. Pratt's Ferry, Roberta Case, and Barton's Beach. This is a shot of some volunteers, the LEAF program, Leadership in Environmental Leaders of Environmental Action for the Future, I think. But they helped build out a canoe access point. It's a parking lot at our Bibb County Glades Preserve to get people to safely and enjoy the Little Cahaba River without damaging multiple access points. Speaking of Bibb County Glades, it's one of our larger preserves in central Alabama. It's kind of our keystone here in the middle of the state. It's known as the Botanical Lost World. And that's a picture of Goat Glade. And the reason it's Botanical Lost World is because there were several species of plants unknown to science until the early 90s. And we actually got our own U-Haul truck. If you see at the very bottom, sort of underneath the uhaul.com, Chris Oberhauster that's our former state director, was one of the people that signed the truck as it came through. And there's the actual graphic. What makes the Glade special is that it's got a very specific calcium magnesium mix in the limestone, and it allows certain plants to grow in those sort of harsh conditions while it keeps other plants from growing. And in South Alabama, we have one preserve in Alabama and one preserve in Northwest Florida. We can actually see Alabama from the Rainwater Preserve in Florida, so it kind of counts. This is a picture of staff doing a controlled burn around the housing there that houses the seasonal fire crews and allows researchers to come in and stay. Not only do we manage the preserves, but we also manage a lot of the sort of non-traditional lands, short-term holdings, conservation easements, and even fire crew housing. That's going to be covered in a different talk, but it's a lot of different lands all over the state. And what you might ask, why do we have these things? What do we protect? We have these properties to protect the habitats for rare and endangered species, plants, animals. This is some of the research we've helped accomplish. That's a cave in Bibb County Glades. Bibb County has a number of glades, or number of caves, excuse me, that are home to a number of threatened bats. This is researchers from the state of Alabama and a couple of universities in Tennessee setting up what they call harp net to catch bats as they come out. And that's what it looks like. All those little black things, those are bats, primarily brown bats, grays, I think, and some Indianas. I'd have to go back and look at the overall count for the night. They were taking genetics. They were looking at overall health and reproductivity of the species, and also looking for white nose syndrome. Unfortunately, they found it, and at that time, when the survey was completed, that was the southernmost occurrence of white nose found in the state. We also do grassland restoration, protect watersheds. This is the Paint Rock River watershed area in North Alabama. We did a grassland restoration along with a stream reorientation. It had been boogered up from earlier ag practices, and the Conservancy helped reform the more natural stream channel, which allows for more ecologically minded water management. And that the Dolomite Glade along the Bibb County Little River, Little Cahaba River. Again, it hosts a number of species, but also helps protect the water coming in off the land into the rivers that have those super rare plants and animals that are in the water. And down in South Alabama, we've got Splinter Hill Bog Preserve, which is one of the premier carnivorous plant sites in the world. We've had researchers and ecotourists come in from Germany, all over the United States, Florida, and this is a site that we manage not only for the pitcher plants, but also for the other species of plants, the native grasses, longleaf pine, um, the gopher tortoise, which is also found on that property. What do we protect our preserves from? Non-native plants, animals, and people, unfortunately. Sort of the top ones, you've got kudzu, everybody knows, Kogan grass, which is an up-and-comer in central Alabama. Unfortunately, it's been in South Alabama for a while. Climbing fern and Bradford pears actually starting to show up in our natural areas, which is scary. Let's picture Kogan grass. Like I said, it's kind of an up-and-comer in central Alabama as far as the kind of damage it'll do. It tends to form these super thick mats of monoculture grass that aren't very palatable. The wildlife doesn't eat them. I've heard stories that goats won't even eat Kogan grass, which shows you how bad it really is. When it does burn, it tends to burn too hot and kills a lot of the native trees and shrubs that are supposed to be there. Non-native animals, we're seeing a lot of wild hog damage in the south and in central parts of the state. Luckily, we're not seeing it in North Alabama, East Alabama, where our preserves are primarily located, but it's only a matter of time. That's a picture of some hog damage. And the way the hogs damage the natural habitat is they tend to root and tear up the vegetation looking for grubs. There was a study, that pitcher plant study in, I'm gonna say it was North Carolina, where they'd done a bog restoration. And then the hogs came in like a week later and destroyed it. So they're very tough critters to get rid of. And once they're sort of there, it takes a dedicated effort, and we're working hard to keep those off our preserves. And probably our most insidious threat are people. I like people out on our preserves, but overuse and abuse is one of the leading causes of damage and degradation to these natural habitats. This is sort of a parking area at one of our smaller preserves, Pratt's Ferry in Bibb County. It is a canoe access point, and it's a constant battle to keep that area safe and secure and clean. We have vandalism. Bored kids, I guess, went out and decided to do a little spray painting. The picture with the name on that's a white, that was actually on one of the glades along the river. So you can imagine how detrimental that would be to the ecosystem. How do we protect it? By setting it on fire. We do a lot of land management with trying to use Mother Nature's tools to mimic what she does. This is a picture of a couple of our, one of our full-time staff, Jeff Sorrell, and one of our volunteers, Sahoy. They're doing a prescribed burn at Splinter Hill Bog. That's another one of our seasonal team members doing a grassland burn in Atauga County. The burning sort of refreshes the grass, and certain species of grass like wiregrass need fire to stimulate the flowering. You might think, why are you setting these wonderful places on fire? Well, if you take a look at this picture, it's a longleaf pine stand that we burned at Roberta Case Pine Hills Preserve. And that's the same picture, I think about 6 months later. You can see all the fluffy, tasty grass and other shrubs and forbs that come up and respond to that fire. We'll just go back. And that's the kind of image I like to think of when I think of well-burned woods. Well, we can't burn it all. We do a lot of hand and mechanical removal vegetation. A lot of shrubs like privet and cedar and smaller trees. They shade out a lot of the really rare and easily disturbed plants that are the smaller plants. This is a group of volunteers that are doing a cedar removal on a glade near our Bibb County Glades Preserve to help promote Tennessee yellow-eyed grass, which is only found in a couple of sites. Occasionally, we need more than volunteers with bow saws. We will where the habitat and the ecology support it, use industrial timber harvesting to remove off-site loblolly pine. That gets that sort of the commercial pine off the site, and it allows the native species of longleaf and some of the native grasses and shrubs to really thrive in that sunlight. When we do a timber harvest, I'm a forester, we've got other foresters on staff, we go out and make sure that we mark each individual tree that we want to leave, so we know our spacing, we know where what the tree density will end up, and we'll know what we have, and we protect what should be there. We don't only remove trees, we put them back. Depending on where your screen is, you've got little green tufts sticking up in the brown vegetation. Those little green tufts are longleaf pine. They're native. They should be here. After we remove the bad vegetation, we come in with the good vegetation. We don't only plant longleaf. We've done hardwood restorations in the Paint Rock River Valley. We've done native grass restoration in Autauga and in North Alabama. We occasionally will have to go into some of these rare pitcher plant sites and augment with plants that have been grown by the Atlanta Botanical Garden to supplement the populations. So it's cutting and planting and burning. That's a lot of how we protect the sites. And that is the gentian pink root in Bibb County Glades. That's the plant that's supposed to be there. That's what it's all about. That's prairie clover at Prairie Grove Glades, a plant that grows out in the middle of rocks and pretty much nothing else. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Chuck. We do have a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
One of them is that why don't the bats fly out of the catch area?
Well, the way the harp net is set up is that it's like a cloth channel, and they've got wire that sort of comes down, but they've got a clear plastic. So when they come down, they kind of get underneath between the cloth and the clear plastic. So that's how you could see them without them flying away.
Oh, okay.
It allows for enough breathing that they can survive and aren't harmed. I've got a short video of that, but it's a little creepy. Although, and it doesn't do well for presentations. So the pictures are kind of good explanation.
Well, we also have a question about Kogan grass. If goats won't eat it, animals won't eat it, and you can't burn it, then how do you deal with it when it shows up?
Well, that's one of the times where even as we work for the Nature Conservancy, we have to use herbicide. It's one of the species that there's not a good way to get rid of it. And so we make sure that we use the appropriate chemical, the appropriate label rate, and we have staff that are trained. I've got my herbicide applicator's license from the state of Alabama. All of our staff has experience working with herbicide and understand the procedures and policies that you have to use herbicide in a safe and effective manner.
And then can you eat the pigs? Everybody loves bacon.
Yes, actually you can. Depending on depending on how they're harvested, you can the size of the pig matters, of course. The really big ones tend to be very gamey. Males tend to be even more gamey. So not to say that the ideal size of harvesting feral hogs is about 30 to 45 pounds, but and they do get a lot bigger than that. And they're not only do they eat plants, but they also predate turkey nests, amphibians. There was a study at one of the national forests where they found several species of listed amphibian in the stomach content of some of the hogs that they've caught. So shoot them. If you eat them, that's good. If you don't, please still take care of them.
Well, what is your favorite preserve and why? And will there be more preserves in the future?
Well, second part first. The Nature Conservancy is expanding their preserves. We're looking at several different methodologies for looking at the preserves that we want to expand. Resiliency to climate change is a big one. Connectivity to other conservation areas. Looking at not specific species, but whole suites of species, whole watershed protection. And we use that sort of metric to go forth and sort of look at areas that come available and how they fit into that sort of overall local and global landscape. My favorite preserve, I love Bibb County for a couple of different reasons. Growing up in Louisiana, I never imagined that rock actually occurred on the ground, naturally in the ground. It's got hills, it's got really cool plants, it's got really nice grass, it's got a river. Well, it's got a couple of rivers actually. The preserve stretches between the Cahaba, Little Cahaba, and 6 Mile Creek. It's got good forest, and it's relatively close to my house. So, there's that.
That's good answer. All right. Well, we want to thank you for your presentation and really a look at what you do and where we preserve places around the state. And next week, I stand corrected, we will have a presentation from Katie Balser, who's our new coastal conservation specialist. She's the newest person on our coastal team. She's going to talk about a little bit about her background, some of the new coastal projects on the horizon, and she's going to take us across the world to talk about Australia's living seawalls and how they relate to Alabama. So as you can see, conservation never stops. The work goes on even during the pandemic. And when the rest of us are stuck at home, we've got Chuck and the scientists out working. So we need your financial support more than ever. And if you can, do make a gift today at supportnature.org/Alabama. So there's the thing on your screen.